All right, folks. Well, welcome to Beefing Up Your Resume. My name is Jonathan. I'm the Career Engagement Specialist for the School of Business. This is our first workshop, or as I like to call it, a fun shop, because really no work involved. This is all exciting, fun stuff. And if you're here for our very first Career Opportunities Week info session, we're really happy that you are. So, what we're going to look at today, I want to run through a few quick questions about resumes, and then I do have 10 tips for you to beef up your resume. So our first question is pretty simple. What is a resume? And a resume really is a written record of your abilities and experience. The resume provides an overview of everything that you've done and shows to an employer what you bring to that role. It should be well crafted to really showcase your experiences and abilities. And again, it's uniquely crafted to each position that you apply for. I'm going to come back to that theme. A resume, you most commonly use it to apply for a job or for an internship, but you might also need it to apply for graduate school or for a scholarship. And even if you're not actively thinking about seeking something new, it's always a good habit to keep your resume up to date so it's ready to go when you need it. Who needs a resume? Everyone. We all need one, right? First year students, any here? Any first year students? Okay, we got a couple first year students. So starting your resume now, using it to keep track of your experiences and involvements as they happen, is a really great habit to get into. Any graduating students, any seniors? Okay, so thinking about it when you might begin applying for jobs or looking at graduate schools, it's really an essential document during and after college. So we want everybody to walk out of here with a good resume. And who reads your resume? It's kind of a trick question. So we most often think of a human being, a hiring manager, a recruiter, sitting down and looking at your resume as a piece of paper, like I just gave you. But more commonly, we're seeing that applicant tracking system, the ATS, will actually read your resume when you apply electronically for a job online. And most of you will be applying for jobs online, right? You're not going to be mailing your resume to someone. So it's important to consider both readers in order to maximize your resume's impact. So as we come back to that idea, when I talk about resume formats, we're going to include applicant tracking systems as part of that calculation. So here we go. Here are our 10 tips to make your resume outstanding in your field, just like that cow is. So we want to master the format, ditch the template, be smart with the contact info that we share, read the job posting carefully, articulate your skills, your vocabulary matters. You want to quantify your results, drop some names, keep a record, and proofread. Okay, so we're going to come back through these steps. So the first one is mastering the format. So resume format is a very specific sort of thing. I gave you an example in one of our handouts about how to format your resumes. The cow is to go take a nap now. How to format your resume should be laid out clearly, easy to read, filling the page without appearing too crowded. Each section should be distinct. Those key details, titles, dates should pop out. And it should also be easy for an applicant tracking system to read. That means no pictures, unusual fonts, or odd layout choices that the computer system isn't going to know how to read. But most importantly, your resume is yours. It should reflect you. It's a personal document, so we want it to reflect your style as well. So I'm going to run quickly through the main resume components and thinking about what information to include in each section. So first is your contact information. Your full name, always in large type at the top of the page. I always like to be able to see somebody's name on their resume from across the table. So if I'm thinking about your name, it should be easy to spot. Your email address and your phone number. Now, some options to include and I'll talk about these in tip number 3, will be mailing address, quick link to your LinkedIn profile, and maybe a professional portfolio. Yep. Education and related coursework. So, name and location of colleges you've attended, dates of graduation or program completion, related course titles and objectives. Now, we can ditch high school at a certain point. Usually after your first year of college, you'll start to think about ditching your high school. Now, maybe you went to a very specialized high school. Anybody go to a magnet school or technical high school, performing arts high school, anything like that? Okay, so you might think about including that, but again, at a certain point, high school is going to drop off there. Your related employment experience. This is the meat of your resume, right? Your actual experience, what you've done, your hands-on. But we want a lot of details. So your job title, the name of the organization, the location, the dates you were employed, and then really, really, really the meat of your resume are those job responsibility bullet points. We're going to drill down into those in a couple of our later tips, but we want to start with strong action verbs using the past tense and list those in reverse chronological order. In other words, we're going to start with the most recent, sort of the most fresh, robust experience that you've had, and then we'll work backwards as we go. Your specialized skills. Sometimes it's good on your resume to have a section that really spells out those in-demand skills that you have. Software skills, foreign languages with level of proficiency, skills with any special tools or equipment, coding, programming languages becoming more common to see on a resume, and then sort of those industry-specific skills. Stage combat, awesome. Put that on your resume, why not? And your final section on your resume, I love to have it be the honors and activities. Kind of that last little bit to close out your resume. Again, somebody's read through it, they've seen all the great stuff you've done, but then you're closing out with honors and awards or recognition, activities, especially if you've had a leadership position, right? You've been an officer, you've led a program, and then any other membership that you want to include. And then some options, right? Sometimes we get to a certain point and we're like, I need to fill it out a little bit more. So you might consider professional certifications, professional affiliations. Maybe you joined an honor society or Future Teachers of America, something like that, to include. Maybe you presented at the Wayland Symposium, right? So you can include that experience as well. Volunteer work, community service, and then maybe as a little extra filler, you could think about your personal interests, hobbies, something like that. Again, hopefully it'll line up. Hopefully it'll line up with your career choice. So, blow your minds a little bit. Here's a color-coded resume. Now this is going to be overwhelming at first, but it's going to show us all of these essential resume components. Our action verbs, our hard skills, impact metrics, I'll come back to that idea, impact statements, and soft skills, okay? So zoom in a little bit. So remember I said that the real meat of your resume are those bullet points, those experience statements, figuring out how to talk about your experience, how to give these examples is really key to coming across well to a recruiter in an applicant tracking system. So we want to figure out how to do that. This just gives us kind of a color-coded view. Okay. Now that we've got a good feeling on resume format, we want to ditch the template. It can be super tempting to start with Microsoft Word or Canva, resume template. Let's start there. And that's fine to get you started, but eventually it's going to get tricky because you're going to want to add more experience. You're going to want to edit and adjust as you gain experience. and you'll start to run out of room in certain sections. You'll start to feel like, oh, how come I can't fit more in this column? What's happening? And any recruiter can spot a template from a mile away. So you don't want to look like you're lazy or taking a shortcut. I challenge you, start with a blank page. Start with your resume as a blank page and work from there. Remember, it's a personal document. It should reflect you. You've got a guide there in front of you. You can kind of figure out what you want your resume to look like as the end product. So challenge yourself. All right, tip number 3. Be smart with the contact information that you share. Now, you may have your personal email address, PokemonLover42@yahoo.com, not something that we want to see on a resume, right? So try to pick a professional looking email address. Your .edu email address is just fine, perfectly fine to use that. And then usually you can also leave out your mailing address unless they require it. Employers aren't going to send you a letter, right, to offer you a job interview. And sometimes if you're applying for a job far away, that might even count you out from consideration because they're not looking to pay relocation expenses or something like that. Instead, consider a clickable link to your LinkedIn profile, your online portfolio. That's much more useful to an employer. And if you're applying for the job online, they'll be able to click right on that in your document. Read the job posting carefully is tip number 4. Now that kind of feels like common sense, right? A lot of times we'll read the job description, we'll start to get a little discouraged. You're like, oh man, I don't check every box that they want. But remember, it's a wish list for the employer. Doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. Remember, they're wishing for that perfect candidate who might not exist. And you can also tailor your resume to emphasize the key skills that the employer is looking for. Remember, they're telling you exactly what they want in that job posting, so you can look for those key terms, keywords, attributes, and skills. Think about those key desired qualities. What are they really looking for? And then be sure to include them in your resume. Again, you can take the experience that you've had and make the case that it does fit what they're looking for. Let's take a look at an example of that. So here's an example job posting. And for each sort of bullet point in the job posting, I've pulled out what the key desired qualities are. So you've got sports multimedia journalist at Spectrum, research pitch, write, capture visual content, edit stories, produce creative, original, compelling stories for multiple platforms. They're really just asking for someone who can show creativity, right? You may not have done everything on that list, but you've got experiences where you were creative, where you created something new, right? So you can show your creativity through your resume. The next one, develop and cultivate network of sources, establish community present outside the newscast, right? They're really just asking for your ability to network and take initiative. Generate story ideas, develop fresh angles, following through on projects, right? So if you can explain through your resume how you show creativity, take initiative, and follow through on your projects, you're already a shoo-in for this job. So really looking at the job description and not just thinking about the words, but think about what are they really looking for? What is their ideal candidate for this position? And then thinking about how you can address that. And you do that by articulating your skills. So now that you kind of know what they're looking for, you can provide some evidence. And really the place to do that is in that experience section, is in those bullet points on your resume. So starting off with a strong action verb that addresses that skill set mentioned in the job posting. And a lot of times each job posting is going to be unique, but really the skills and attributes the employers want are not. In fact, we know exactly which attributes employers are looking for and how much they want them. So here's some evidence from the National Association of Colleges Employers. And they're listing out the top 5 attributes. Remember, they've surveyed employers and they've said, hey, can you rank your top 5 things that you're looking for in a candidate? And the numbers are pretty overwhelming. 61% problem-solving skills, 61% ability to work on a team, 52% strong work ethic, 50% analytical quantitative skills, communication skills, written and technical skills, okay? So now we know what employers are looking for. And now we want to speak to that on our resume. This is exciting. So here it is, problem solving skills. So thinking about those action words on your resume: address, conceptualize, develop, ensured, innovative, simplify, right? Starting off those action statements, those experience statements with that. Ability to work on a team, coordinated, facilitated, led, mentored, motivated, supported, right? Strong work ethic, delivered, initiated, launched, maximized, overcame, produced, resolved. Analytical quantitative, analyzed, evaluated, organized, projected, researched, revised. Communication, advised, composed, created, documented, edited, publicized, wrote, automated, designed, programmed. So we've got this vocabulary that we can use. One of your handout is an action verb list. So just take a look through that and think about what those action words that you could include in your resume to really kick off those experience statements, make them exciting, attention grabbing, and really speak to those skills that you'll bring to a role. So now that you've started to think about your action statement, your resume bullet point, now you want to back it up with some evidence. So you're going to be tempted to keep it brief, but don't undersell yourself. Remember, a recruiter, and especially an applicant tracking system, a computer system that's reading your resume, it's only going to know what you tell them. It's only going to know the words that you put in front of it. So always put your skills and accomplishments in a context. And if there's anything I want you to walk out of here knowing about your resume, it's your place to brag. It's your place to show off. I know sometimes we get uncomfortable with that, right? We don't want to talk about all the awesome things that we've done, but your resume is your place to do that. So use a diverse and exciting vocabulary to illustrate your accomplishments in detail. Let's look at an example. So there's a class here at Ithaca College that relates to the comic book convention. Professor Ed Cato in the School of Business teaches a class, Planning and Hosting Ithacon. And Ithacon is a comic book convention. Actually, last year was their 45th year. And all of the students in the class play a role in hosting the convention. It's 2 days, really exciting. And here's an example resume bullet point. So it says, this is for the volunteer coordinator for the group, coordinated volunteers for a local comic book convention. That's pretty typical of what I would see on a first draft of a resume, right? Just a real basic statement, coordinated volunteers for a local comic book club convention. But let's ask ourselves some questions. How many volunteers were there? How much coordination had to go into that? What were the actual activities that the volunteers performed? How much planning had to go into that? What were the event details? How many people attended? What were some of those key metrics? And what about event feedback or other related achievements? Okay, so take a picture of that bullet point in your mind, right? And let's see if we can do better. How about this? Recruited, onboarded, and managed 25 student and community volunteers for the nation's second longest running comic book convention hosted by the Comic Book Club of Ithaca, held on Saturday, April 23rd and Sunday, April 24th, 2022. That's one bullet point, right? It's got all those key details in there. How many volunteers, who they were from, where this was, and even some great trivia, right? Nation's second longest running comic book convention. That's awesome. Bullet point number 2. Remember, we're expanding just on one little statement here. Coordinated volunteer assignments to provide customer service and logistical support for approximately 1,000 panelists, guest vendors, and attendees throughout a 2-day in-person event in the Campus Center and Egbert Hall buildings of Ithaca College. Wow, 2 buildings you were in? Holy moly, that's great. 1,000 panelists, guests, attendees. Maybe it was more than that, I just guess. And then the third one, utilize ivolunteer.com's online software for volunteer signups, scheduling volunteer times, locations, and responsibilities. So now you're dropping in that software platform that you use to actually manage the volunteers. Now, we could probably go on, right? We didn't even answer all these questions. Maybe by the end of this, for this one role, we're gonna have 5 or 6 really robust resume bullet points that really show off our accomplishments. Now, you may edit this depending on the job you're applying for, but let's say you found San Diego Comic-Con was hiring a volunteer coordinator, and you said, gosh, that's my dream job. How do I show that I've done this? You can use that experience and really beef up that section of your resume, right? So it's all in that vocabulary. It's all in how we illustrate and talk about our experience. And remember, we want to make it as exciting as possible. We want to hit those key words and really show the effect that we have. And speaking of effects, we want to think about quantifying our results. And one of the best ways to do that is show that what you did had an impact that can be measured. Back on that one, I had some numbers worked in there. So you increased sales by 12% in 1 quarter. You trained 3 new employees this month. You delivered a 45-minute presentation in front of 500 people, right? And keep adding numbers in there. So there's this XYZ formula that makes this really easy. Accomplish X as measured by Y by doing Z. Let's look at an example. So here's our XYZ formula. Member of Leadership for Tomorrow Society. Yeah, we could do better. How about selected as one of 275 for this 12-month professional development program for high-achieving diverse talent. Okay, we're getting there. Let's do a little better. Selected as one of 275 participants nationwide for this 12-month professional development program for high-achieving diverse talent based on leadership potential and academic success, right? So we're really taking this what looks like a very simple member of Leadership for Tomorrow Society, but we're bringing in the actual metrics about it. We're talking about how one qualifies for that Leadership for Tomorrow Society and really what that means. So we're breaking through that XYZ formula. Then we've got accomplished X, you were selected, measured by Y, by doing Z. I don't know if my color codes, they might mix up the X and the Y actually, but, or the Y and the Z, but that's okay. The point is that the information's there, right? And a recruiter can look at that and say, wow, somebody has really done something awesome by qualifying for this organization. And when we're thinking about our resume bullet points, if we can remember to make them RIM, relevant, impactful, and measurable. If we want to match the skills, make them relevant to the position you're applying for, make them impactful by demonstrating the effect you had on your role, and making it measurable, quantifying in numbers wherever you can. And it's okay to guess, it's okay to estimate, right? You might not have the exact quantifiable numbers in front of you, but if you can give the recruiter an idea of the impact that you had, that can be really powerful. All right, tip number 8. We're gonna drop some names. And this is really, really important because remember, an applicant tracking system is just scanning your resume. They're looking for those key words as they match up to the job description. So those could be broad categories, like budgeting, or something specific like you used Microsoft Excel for budgeting, right? Either way, the recruiter and the applicant tracking system is gonna pick up on the fact that you match what they're looking for. So if you can, mirror the language that's in the job posting. So for instance, you worked at a grocery store, so on your resume you said, stocked fresh fruits and vegetables. That's great. But if you read the job description, they talk about, standard of quality, right? So if you can say instead, ensure all produce met store's standard of quality, because that's what the employer values, that's going to pop out more to a recruiter or to an applicant tracking system. So you have to kind of go in your resume and tweak it a little bit, right? You want it to match what the employer is looking for. And really cool way to do this, run your resume experience through a word cloud generator. So this is for event planning. And so we know that in a job description, it's going to mention things like planning software, event logistics, vendors, event design, scheduling, budgeting. So take your experience section, run it through that word cloud generator, and then you'll see what stands out, right? So the bigger words appear more frequently, you're going to get noticed more by an applicant tracking system or a recruiter, and you'll be able to visualize your experience and say, okay, I'm on the right track. If the bigger words had nothing to do with event planning, right, that means you should kind of go back and revise your resume. Think about how you can emphasize those attributes a little bit better. So, tip number 9, keep a record. Remember, we had some first-year students here, right? So I encourage you to start to keep track of those experiences. You may keep a master resume. It has all of your experiences, achievements, involvement, everything listed in detail. And you never know, any experience might turn out to be relevant for a future job application. And I'll tell you this, you never know where your career is going to take you, right? You may end up working in an industry, in a role that's unrelated to your current major. Believe me, it happens. I was a history major in college as an undergrad. So nobody said, hey, major in working for career services, right? We didn't plan for this, and yet we found ways to include our past experience. So you never know where your career is going to take you. So the other thing is those impactful, measurable details sometimes can be easy to forget, right? We might not remember those, so if we can keep track of them. And then if you have a master resume, you can edit and adapt it for each job or each role that you apply for, because you've got it written down in front of you. And so our last tip, I think, is going to be pretty obvious, but a resume is also kind of a test. It's a test of your attention to detail. And sometimes a tiny mistake in grammar, spelling, or punctuation can land your resume in the no pile. We don't want that to happen. Also, don't trust spell check. Remember, resumes are written in that kind of weird format where you're starting the statement off with an action verb, which isn't typically how we write or speak. So sometimes the spell check in Word or Microsoft or Google Docs, it won't recognize what you're trying to do in the resume. So really recommend coming to our drop-in hours. Always have someone look over your resume for you. You can come Monday through Friday, no appointment needed, 11 to 2, to have somebody look over your resume. So really, I do promote having someone actually look over your resume, but you're going to be experts too. Because I'm going to ask you to review some resumes. So using what you've learned, and I'm going to show you a resume rubric, I want you to look at the resume and tell me where it falls on the resume doneness scale. We are definitely leaning into the cow stuff and the beef and all that. So we have, of course, well done, medium, and rare. So first I want you to look at format and appearance. I'll give you a copy of this as well. Well done, it's appropriate length, fills the page, not overcrowded, consistent font spacing, use of bold, italic, underlining, and then, we get worse kind of as we go on. Organization. So name and contact info listed clearly, titles, organizations stand out. It's ordered in terms of importance. Section titles highlight relevant skills, experiences, listed reverse chronological order, and then worse from there. And then content. So this is really key: strong action verbs, details, outcome accomplishment oriented, like we said, no mistakes, description's concise. And then actually on the paper copy I'll give you, you can actually drill down into the different resume sections. So actually maybe Sam can help pass these out. We'll give everybody is going to get a resume and then a rubric to go with it, okay?
You don't want one, right?
Return.
I mean, I do this every day.
Raise your hand if you didn't get one. Yep. Sam's got it. Okay, so we're gonna look at Barry Bovine, Daniel Derry, Maureen Hoofernan, and Daisy Mae Sweat.
You had too
So-
much fun with that.
So look at their resume, and then looking at that rubric, I want you to tell me where they fall. We take a few minutes and look at it. Take a few minutes to look at it, and see if you can decide where on that resume scale. Is it well done? Is it medium, rare? Is it still raw? Is it mooing, right? Some of these are pretty underdone. Does anybody need something to write with? You want a pen? I mean, I know you want one of these pens, right? Anybody? Yeah. Got a winner. Yeah, of course you do. What does it say? 80. Yeah. Okay. Who had Barry? Okay. I want you to imagine that you ordered Barry at a restaurant, and Barry showed up at your table. What are you gonna say to the waiter?
Send him back.
Send it back. Barry's no good. Barry is raw, maybe, still mooing. Somebody who had Barry, give me one detail or one area where Barry could improve. Yeah?
No detail.
No detail. Okay. So like the bullet points, there's nothing,
Pretty
right?
much.
Nothing happening there. Okay. Where else could Barry improve? Yeah.
There's like almost no contact information.
Okay.
Like the
What's
only-
his email address?
Mm-hmm.
cows4life@gmail.com.
Cows for Life with a Y, right? Yeah, awesome. Okay. Yeah, so Barry's got some issues that he needs to address. If you didn't get Barry, that's okay. How about Daniel? Yeah. Somewhere between medium and rare. Okay, sure. What has Barry done well? I'm sorry, Daniel. What has Daniel done well? Let's say one nice thing about Daniel's resume. Yeah.
I think like his experience and skills and everything, like it's good. It's
Good.
just- I just think like the formatting is really good.
Formatting is the main problem. Okay. Any other thoughts on Daniel Derry? What he could address? Yeah.
He does have like the experience and skills listed, but a lot of his skills don't match his experience. Like if he like better articulated it, he would be probably like more well done because he has a lot of information. He just isn't really writing about it.
Yeah, and taking those skills and putting them in his experience section and really talking about where on the job he used those skills could be really helpful. Okay, so I feel like we're trending upwards. Let's talk about Maureen Hoofernan. How's Maureen doing? Yeah.
It's in the middle of medium and well done.
Okay. Tell us why. What does she do well?
I feel like she's getting there. She has like most of the points kind of down, but I feel like she could go a little more into like the quantifiable qualities of the job.
Okay, so more quantifiable details, more evidence, absolutely.
Formatting could be a little tighter as well.
Okay.
Doesn't need her personal address there.
Sure.
And also it mentions here, some of her action verbs aren't as strong as they could be. A lot of it's participated, observed,
Mhm.
could be a lot more hands-on.
Yeah, so participated, observed, very passive, right? We can make those more exciting and impactful. Yeah.
There's like a lot of bullets, but it seems like they're all like one line or one sentence, like compared to the ones we looked at.
Okay.
It seems like they're kind of short in more detail.
Could have a lot more evidence, a lot more impact there, right? Awesome. Okay. We're getting as close as we're gonna get to a blue ribbon, I think, for Daisy Mae Swift. Somebody who has Daisy Mae, can we talk about what Daisy Mae did well? Yeah.
Structured really nicely, and they're clear, concise, like bullet points, and better use of action verbs.
Awesome. Good. Somebody else, I know somebody else had Daisy Mae. Yeah.
Yeah, like I like the whole format of it. Lists her education, the experience that she has, and the skill sets, and as well as the involvement. Like that she was heavily involved. She was a treasurer and a social media chair. She was a class representative, and she also put her honors and awards. She was on Dean's List, and she got Professional Excellence Award for helping
Good.
science.
Yeah, okay. So really interesting, like, I wanna steal Barry for a second here. I'm just gonna show you Barry's resume. Like, when we said bad, we mean bad, right? Like Barry had nothing. Now I'm gonna steal Daisy Mae, and we're gonna look at better, right? So what's interesting about this activity is you guys became resume experts in under 45 minutes, right? You're not trained recruiters, you're not, HR professionals, you're not even an applicant tracking system AI, right? It's very easy to see a bad resume and say, that's a bad resume. It gets a little tougher when we get into the awesome resumes, like we can really drill down into the details, but there we go. So if you feel like you've learned a lot about resumes, if you want to try your hand at this, we have a cream of the crop resume contest happening this week. The contest is open until midnight on Thursday, and then on Friday we're going to select a winner. And you could win up to $75 at the campus bookstore, which I think is pretty sweet. That could buy you like half a textbook, right? I mean, that's a good deal. So, as long as you don't need the other half, right? Drop the course or whatever. So that could be a really cool way to show off what you learned in this info session. Any other questions? If you missed the SLI sign up, that's the QR code for it. But any other resume questions?
Anybody who came in late, even if you are not looking for SLI credit, if you can still scan in so we can take your
Yeah, we want to kind of take attendance, right? Show your neighbors the resume example that you got. Yeah, question?
Oh, sorry, yeah, I
No, you're fine.
just have a really quick question. So like, say I'm just running the resume just to have a resume and I don't have a specific like job outlook.
Sure.
Do I still need to rely like super heavily on numbers, especially if my former job experience wasn't like something I had access, like I didn't have access to those numbers?
Yeah.
Or is that more so if I need to get a specific thing?
So that's a really great question, right? So let's say it's a past job, and you don't necessarily have access to that quantifiable. It's okay to guess, right? Like you could take an estimate. At the same time, you could reach out to your past supervisor, who maybe you want to include as a reference, a recommendation, and say, hey, do you remember when we did that project? Do you remember how many clicks we got? Or do you remember how much we sold or something like that, right? And the same thing, like you said, you don't have necessarily a job in mind yet for the future, but to start developing that master resume. Put as much detail as you can. That way in the future, when you do apply for a job, you can edit that and tweak it to really be as relevant as possible to that job you want to apply for. Sure. Other questions? So we are so excited. This is a fantastic turnout for our first one of these info sessions. In about 15 minutes, we're gonna have milk and cookies to celebrate at a little open house for our office. This is our team. We are the Center for Career Exploration and Development. Our director, Dave Curry, Brielle, John, Andrew, Susie, me. We're the dream team for sure.
Absolutely.
And we actually just rebranded. So we were just the Office of Career Services, but now we're the Center for Career Exploration and Development, which we're super pumped about. So Career Opportunities Week is all about that. We're so grateful that you came. We've got handouts over there, squishy cows and pens, and please do stay for our open house. I'll hang out up front in case you have questions. Thanks, everybody.
Moo.